Back in 1893, who can these people be? In the middle of the sea, sing a song of sovereignty, Aohimalahini. She ruled her people with grace and dignity, showing all the world the importance of unity. Onipa'a, Amaro until we die. Any enemy of Hawaii is an enemy of mine.
I'd like to also recognize Brother Pono right here. Pono is the Hawaiian water cronkite today. You can look up his site, Pono Size, and he's really the documentarian of all the stuff that's going on in the islands, all over. So Brother Pono for always documenting, and without further ado, the real master speaker over here, Mr. Sam Kai.
Hello, Kali. Oh my God. We the small are gathered for a whisper. Pahu pahu mai no huli. He said, a time to turn over. Akaka, mai kanaka. Why I tell you he's my kanaka is because when he ran for office the first time, I handled the people in Lahaina to vote for him. They talked of an idea, they spoke an idea of how Hawaii would be part, the Hawaiian matter would be handled as part of a nation within a nation. And out of it came the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, which is in fact an appendix of the state constitution. Okay? It has done great research in counting our numbers twice. I remember signing up for OHA when it was created. Then I was told, you got to go back and sign again for Kauinoa. Then there was a whisper on the wind that only those who are Kauinoa would be recognized legally as Hawaiians. All others, the Lord Makani would blow away. Much of OHA and much of a plan happening politically is about getting grants. When they had a particular assembly called the Constitutional Assembly, the idea of independence was a vulgarity by Hawaiians. No, that's enough. Otherwise I stay too long. And there were very few people then who would like to see the First Nation become the First Nation again. Why do I call it the First Nation? Because France and England made one nation the very first in the entire Pacific Ocean. All other territories were held by other nationalities. The Spanish America, or Spanish whole, is all of Chile, Argentina, Mexico. The English held Canada. The American territory was being stolen from the colonial power called Spain. The China was broken up into Portuguese, German, and English. There was no place that those native peoples were their own. The newly found idea of state was being created in Europe as the affair of state, and France and England were the major powers. They agreed that they were brother nations and therefore had the status of state, now common statement in law. And the first nation to do that was the constitutional monarchy of Hawaii. All others were some kind of governance by a superior military power and a more intelligent source. Okay? So that is your condition. Now, under international law, you can take territories momentarily if there is a displeasure with two nations fighting it out. When the United States took offense with Spain and was going after the Philippines, it landed at the land of Kahakalole. You folks know Kahakalole? Kapiolani Kahakalole? Kapiolani Park, and they created a place called Camp McKinley. There the tents were set up, and the 4-pounders, those are artillery, and repeater rifles, bolt action. There is where the forces said, we are here and we are the law. Now, under international law, you can hold that in a friendly or other friendly territory for the duration of the conflict, namely for the Spanish-American War. When it ends, you must withdraw. We have an interesting thing happening. You folks remember that funny thing about some police officer thought was funny to write on top of a ticket? This Hawaiian in Hilo said, oh, you know, can charge me for this automobile problem because I'm a Hawaiian citizen and you're an American. He laughed and he put down. He says he's not American, he's Hawaiian. That became a legal document. You know, government makes documents by just signing it. That eventually was submitted in, I always mispronounce it, the place in Holland where the international courts are. The Hague. The Hague court received that piece of paper, and an Englishman who was of canon law or royal law, an expert and friend of the international court, had exactly 12 months to prove that this was worth listening to. In 9 months, he responded and said, there is good cause that the statement is correct. The international court immediately calls on another expert of law and friend of the court. He stands up and he has 30 or 12 months to rebut the first person. Law has to have two opposing parties. A democracy has to have two opposing parties. And then you try 1%, 51% instead of the practice in Congress of 60%. We are not a democratic country so long that rule exists. And it does exist today. The concept of opposition. So the minute they have these two contrary thoughts, a captain general of the tribunal of the matter of Hawaii is established. That gentleman immediately taking command said all 27 nations who had treaties with this state called Hawaii, informed them, especially Holland, since we are on their national territory. Holland only took 4 months to say we cannot find any good cause that a brother nation does not exist. And then 7 nations said yes. And the rest said, what will the United States do? Okay? That is the condition of the court. Now, several people received those papers. I don't think the papal seed received. Italy, Hawaii is older than Italy. Italy was divided up into Naples and northern Italy, and Garibaldi put them together. So what they did there is all of those nations were asked to respond. Many said, what we're going to do, because listen now, most banks hold their currency by having $100 bills in their bank. Okay, so that's basically why you're asking the Americans, what are they going to do, because you're going to really jam up the financial system. Now that Captain General received a response from the United States that they were interested but non-participatory. They're interested in what you're saying, but they're not going to participate. And his response to them is, you cannot not participate. You are the antagonists. That's a legal term, okay? Now that particular gentleman today is the head of the Supreme Court of the United Nations. And on his portfolio, to show that he qualifies for other legal minds to look at the paper and says, hey, you know, this guy shouldn't be there or should, he lists some 40 projects that he's been in. And the very first Captain General of the Tribunal on the State of the Constitutional Monarchy of Hawaii. That's who is in charge of the international courts now. Now I said, wow, gee, that's pretty exciting. There are 72 rulings made by the International Court. None of them followed through except for one, the embargo on South Africa. In other words, no nation need respond to the International Court against itself. But it is filed. A country that talks about human rights is yet to complete its human rights. Now, most nations, every nation can, the borders have changed. At certain times they're larger, certain times they're smaller, certain times they're occupied. Today, the chairman of the Security, not the Security Council, but the General Assembly of the United Nations happens to be from Serbia. Serbia has been claimed by Czechoslovakia and Austria, and its borders moved around. Towards the end of this year, they're going to have to rule on Serbia. So last year, all the things that were in the Security Council were moved over to the General Assembly. All things about Hawaii are now the world's permusal. This has nothing to do with us, and then it has everything to do with us. Okay, so these are things that are happening. The coming of Akaka and Daniel Inouye had a certain idea. Inouye is the one that went to the convention in Honolulu and said, if you people continue saying independence, I cannot guarantee any, what are those things you guys write for the school running? Grants, yeah. Yes, all of those grants cannot come because you are anti-federal and the source of the money is federal. And so a great portion of people walked out of that assembly, namely Alulike, and plenty, you know, Hawaii was coming. Understand how the game is played. It's not a simple thing. It's complicated. My daughter does not want to be independent and be a fourth-rate nation. She would like to stay under the blanket of the military. Now I'm going to give you a small man's opinion. You will be small if you disregard and big if you give it some prayer. It's not for or against. It's not you are a revolutionist or an antagonist. The nation is, there is a wrong. They created the state. France, England, and the other countries call status of state. A state can exist without a nation. Hawaii exists as a state. By the way, the flag we'll be rising today is called the foreign ensign. Kahai o Hawaii was used for shipping because nobody recognized the power of Hawaii. They recognized the Union Jack of England. By the way, the Hawaiian flag, the real Hawaiian flag that the Hawaiians use, only had 2 crosses, not 3. The cross of St. Andrew, the cross of St. George, and the Irish cross was not yet in the Union. That's the real Hawaiian flag. And that is just the foreign ensign. When Kauhikauli built the first residence, now where the palace is in Honolulu, he rose a flag. When he was there, the flag had a crown and the center of the coat of arms. And when he was not in residence, it only had 8 stripes. Because the flag belonged to the head of state. So our flag really is 8 stripes without the quadrant called the protective quadrant. something you should know about your flag, so you put your heart on the right place, on the right stripe. But the thing that is facing us now is that a change has occurred. Two of our senior gentlemen who hold us in the union have passed. He talks about a time, that 120. He's the kumu of a source of a nation. And then there's the la, the branching out. And now we are at a Y. You're going to have to choose right or left, or you're going to split yourself in half if you go forward. These are Hawaiian things, the kumu, the la'au. There is a tree, and Makani, the Lord Makani is waving. It's spewing mana, the breath of the akua, and he's waving. He says, here I am your source. That's what kumu means, the source. It continues to wave, and then it gets tired, it gets old, it is burnt by heat, and it falls from the tree, and the Lord Makani comes and blows away your dreams. If you pick the flower on that tree too early and wear the lei in pride, you will not eat the fruit. You must take some for pride and some to feed the next generation. This is the same thing about water running. When they offer you that independence, they're going to say, let us stay with the banking system. Only one bank is chartered in Hawaii. That's the first Hawaiian bank, which is the Bank of Bishop, and the charter was given by a king, Kalakaua. Everybody else is part of the tablecloth and the new ideas. All of these things you will be asked to chew on. And like chewing hard ava, it will bleed your gums. So, this changing of the guard, the two older gentlemen have passed. They served the best they could in their time, putting everybody on grants. That's what they're doing in Wisconsin. Put all the schools on grants. You know the one where they had the young ladies who had children out of wedlock? They're all on grants. They're not part of the county system or the state system, because grants you can choose not to pay. Strategies are being manipulated right now. When you're on grant, all the Hawaiian language is on grant. This university is on grant. All of these things can be quickly changed or turned over. So they're planting taro beyond the water intake in the valley of Iao, in the burial place of the Ali'i Kahikoma. That is a great change. Haloa and young men are bowing down to Haloa again. Kulo mai nea ka Haloa, hanau I ka kalo mana. The leaves are now gathering the mana again. And the stem, you folks know the prayer of Haloa? Nahuli e ka Haloa. Nahuli e ka Haloa. Turn over the long breath. Replant the taro. There is a part of this prayer that says, not ohana, but ka'aina. You know that land today meant family yesterday? That ohana is not an old word, but made up sometime about 1900 because after the Mahele, all Europeans thought of land as commodity, measured, saleable, and quantity. Hawaiian, it was only a place to kulo to. In the Oau Kanaka is a place you planted and you took care of, you weeded. If we don't understand, then you're urban people. Now, that is the kind of thing that is happening today in understanding. It's like the o'opu going from the shore to the sea. You know the symbol of the sea, the rivers working? It's not the hihiwai or the o'opu. It's the opai ula. You know that small red opai? That is the base of the food for the fish off in the salt water. When you stop that place stops having fish. there is no food. They do not gather. So somebody wanted to be a political movement called Eo Ka Ilio, the barking dog. I would like to be as small as the Opai Ulaula, for it is the base of having protein in these here islands. Our borders have not changed. In the 2,000 years we have been the steward, and the million years that took it to pull it out of the bottom of the ocean. No one disputes our borders. Now that gentleman who just said, who's presiding over this Hawaiian thing in international law, he came up and you're having this thing about nationhood and 27, and is it timely? It is timely. The old guard has passed, and you are standing there. He talked about a Konani board. We're going to have a Konani board. I hope it delights you. Konani means strategy. It's a game of strategy. Most Hawaiian practitioners will tell you that when you play Konani, you only can jump in a row. You can't go right or left. I came home and I told my uncle, Lihau Kaula Ka'ehui, how about this thing that can or no can? And he said, how many chances do you have to go that way? How many chances in a game of Konani? 50 games? It's not an occurrence that happens on the strategy board. Right now, you are standing at that la-la. You can be comfortable with who you are, or you can get up and bow down to Haloa. Water will not flow to Terralands unless men give up rice and start eating poi. Or the water is for that. You see, these principles are at the core level. They are kind of arcade and native, sort of interesting. Well, all those who do not believe in that line, they have a symbol in Hawaii. You folks know what Pua Kinikini is? Anybody know Pua Kinikini? It came in abundance in the Second World War, but it came before that. It's called pig in a can, spam. That is the cool symbol of who we are while we educate ourselves for our job and eat spam, senue, whatever. Fresh food is the stuff you picked up. Going from this side of the island to fish in Kaupo is mahaoi. Because you know the fish over there belong to the people in Kaupo. When you are losing these things, you are making the rules favor yourself and not necessarily favoring life. These are the changes that are coming. That's the choice you have. Wear the lei, you will look handsome, possibly Hawaiian. Eat the fruit, you will burp, not foreign sounds. Pea ka hao hi ka Hawaii. Mahalo.
Progress as well, but in doing so, we cannot, under any circumstance, forget our culture, our language, and our history. Hawaii no ko kako kuleata. Aloha.
Kalana pua o Hawaii, kupa ama hope o ka
Hoka wahine mo I, Lili Ua Kalani. Back in 1893, who can these people be?